go. All right, good evening, everyone. I will call to order the August 16, 2023 Lower Saucon Township Council meeting. Mark, please call the roll.
Mr. Bononis?
Here.
Mr. Croce? Ms. DeLeon?
Here.
Mr. Engels?
Here.
Ms. Yerger?
Here.
All right, please stand and pledge the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, council did not meet in executive session this evening. There's no action on executive session. The public comment procedure is available on the table outside the council meeting room. I would suggest you refresh yourself as to what it says. Again, there's a 3-minute time limit for residents and taxpayers only. Next up on the agenda is a public comment for agenda items only, residents and taxpayers only, 3-minute time limit. Before we get into that, I will announce that there is one item that is off the agenda tonight. The developer item, the zoning hearing board application variance 04-23 from One More Steel City LLC for the property located at 3679 Old Philadelphia Pike, property ID Q6SW2-3-14. We received a request from council this afternoon requesting that the variance request be removed from consideration of tonight's council agenda, and they have asked that this be placed on the council agenda in September. So if you're interested in that item, I would suggest you check the township website and see if that's on, and you're welcome to come back in September if they come back in September. So with that said, I will move on to public comment agenda items only. And the first person we have is Andrea Witchin. Andrea Witchin. Hold on, the microphone's not on there.
Testing 1, 2, 3. I have a lifetime of doing that. First, let me point out that I am not running for office. Secondly, since there's no backup material for the agenda item I will plan on speaking to, I will base my comments on my own observations. I'm speaking to the agenda item about renaming the Woodlands conservation area. It's generally imprudent to name things after living people. Case in point, Lehigh University awarded honorary degrees to Bill Cosby and Donald Trump. That didn't work out well. And art institutions all over the country are scraping the name Sackler off their buildings. In the 20 years that I've been working in the sustainability world in the Lehigh Valley, I've never heard Mrs. Yerger named as a prominent leader, nor have I seen any work that she's done. In the 3.5 years I've been attending council meetings, I've never seen her express any passion or support for a particular environmental improvement or initiative. As chairman of the EAC, she led no significant movement on open space acquisition, and now we're saddled with a superfluous committee that has also done nothing. That issue should fall under the EAC's purview. If you look at the EAC's goals over the past 4 years, there are virtually no changes or additions year to year. This year alone, 3 meetings have been canceled, despite an overwhelming number of environmental issues to be discussed, and she has not raised concerns or objections. Why honor someone whose last campaign attracted the backing of the Political Action Committee funded by the landfill, and who is currently running on a slate with 2 other landfill supporters? This seems a blatantly political maneuver to try to distance her from the other 2 on the slate and repackage her as someone who cares about the land, to get at least one person elected to maintain the current council majority. Otherwise, why suddenly do we have to do this now?
Okay, thank you. Next is Mark Ozimick. Mark Ozimick. I believe so.
Mark Ozmek, Hellertown. I'm just going to ditto everything that she just said, Andrea. And the other thing I'm going to add is, if you want to change the name of the park, change it to Citizens for Responsible Development, because they're the ones that are trying to save the land and clean up the act around here. Have a nice night.
Thank you. All right, next is Joellen Thompson. Joellen Thompson.
Good evening. I am also wanted to address this issue about renaming anything in our township, actually. And it's not at all to question the selection of Sandy Yerger, because I don't know much about all of this. I've heard that she's done very good with preservation matters, but my question is to the procedures for renaming anything in the township. I wonder, is there a procedure that you follow? Is the public informed ahead of time or able to participate, or is this solely a council decision? I am most interested in the procedures that you use and not in the candidate you selected.
Thank you. Next is Lynn Hill. Lynn Hill.
Lynn Hill, good evening, everyone. I have to agree with the previous speakers, Andrea and Mark, regarding the idea of naming Woodland Hills, changing the name to Sandra Yerger, whatever. It seems like a blatant attempt at greenwashing a candidate to me. And there are other people who are far more deserving of this, although I don't agree with the idea at all of naming a park after someone who's still alive. And I think Andrea spoke very eloquently as to the reasons why that's not a good idea. The other comment I want to make is regarding the Hellertown Halloween Parade. It's something I enjoy every year. I don't think I've ever missed it. And I do hope that council thoughtfully considers helping to fund this important community event. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Laura Ray. Laura Ray.
Hi, Laura Ray. I was going to talk a little bit about the Easton Ballpark fields. We finally saw some numbers. I know we had numbers before floating around in the area of $3 million. And seeing the bids that came in, the low bid for the full amount of stuff that you want put in is $3.229 million. And high bid is over $4.5 million. So I was wondering, you know, we get all these numbers, and Tom's not here tonight because he always gives us the fake library number report. I'd be curious, like, how many Lower Saucon residents would be using this ballpark, and what would be like a cost per person for that? Because we've heard over and over, it's, you know, way too much money to pay for people to use a library. So I tried to come up with some numbers. I see there's about 2,000 school students in Saucon Valley. I know they're not all Lower Saucon, so maybe, I don't know what percentage are, but if we have like 500 kids out of Lower Saucon using that, that's $2,684 per person that you're investing in this park. So I would just like to see some comparable numbers, because, you know, we hear how overpriced the library is, yet, you know, a $3 or $4 million ballpark is no questions asked.
Okay, thank you. Next is Dave Spurk.
Good evening. I wanted to come up here and talk about the ball field, but I feel obligated now to say something very nice about Sandra. You know, she's been doing this for decades, and I would just like to remind Sandra that the vast majority of the people in the township are grateful for everything you've done for us, for them, and the work that you have tirelessly done on behalf of us, you know, for so many years. We're grateful, we really are. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, of course, but again, we can't thank you enough for whatever you've done, for everything you've done. especially the EAC. You started it, you led it, you've spearheaded it for so many years. I, for one, want to say thank you on behalf of the vast majority of the citizens. As for the Easton Road ball field, I want to thank this entire council for all the good things that you do. I think the ball field, when it was conceived, was to have a smaller field and then the bigger field. It just didn't work out. Right now, it's not necessarily unplayable, but it is very, very tough to use. And it's what in a business world would be an asset that's underused, all right? It's a non-performing asset. So to take it and make it a performing asset for not only for the kids, and that ball field is used an awful lot. I've spent a lot of time on there raking and, setting those bases into place and marking the field years and years. And it is used an awful lot by an awful lot of Lower Saucon Township citizens. In fact, the team called the Yard Dogs, and there are a lot of teams represented out of Lower Saucon Township, but they just made the playoffs, division champs, so thought I'd throw that plug in there. All right, but as a 20-plus year member of the Parks and Rec Board, on behalf of the Parks and Rec Board, because we've endorsed it, and myself personally, thank you, and please keep going forward with that and every other thing that you're doing on our behalf. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, that concludes the sign-in for the agenda items, but I do see some folks here from baseball who may have missed the list. I think they came in after we started the meeting. If there's anybody else that wants to be added to the list to speak to the issue, I can add you on here. If not, that's fine too. Anyone? If you just want to identify yourself for the record.
Sure. For the record, Greg Best. I'm with Hellertown, Lower Saucon, Saucon Valley Diamond Sports. I'm accompanied with Fred McGargle, who is our Vice President of Baseball. I'm our Vice President of Softball, and we've been on the board for a long time there. We are really excited, and we hope that Easton Road goes through. There are some quick numbers to respond. It's about 600 players that go through that field in the season. The field is used about 5 days a week. Easton Road is not ideal sometimes. There's some wasps and carpenter bees, the occasional things. Logistics, it's parking in the grass. So we're very thankful for the opportunity to have our players play there. And it also gives us availability with that field to not only help participate in different levels. So there's an intermediate level after Little League, which we play at Dimmick Park typically, where it's 50-70 bases, and then it goes to 60-90s where the high school players play as well. I don't want to correct it. I think it's the Yard Goats, is it not? What did I say? Yard Dogs, just for the record. I'm a big record guy. Now that I'm on record, I just felt obligated, but they did make the playoffs. So there's a lot of levels at play there. And what happens right now, for those who don't know, with Dimmick Park, we are unable to use it because of football. So our fall baseball, which is growing, it's about 15% higher than it was last year, and probably close to 10% above that. So we are bringing quality baseball back, which is reflected as our high school is also going deep into the playoffs. So a lot of that starts at Little League, and the nice part here would be also in that we would like to participate and help fundraise for some of the items that may or may not be included to show our, so I'd like to take back to our board that we would like to help fundraise for some of the things because we are certainly the immediate beneficiaries of it. And also there isn't a field that has lights. So once we get past majors, which is about 12 years old, which participates in Little League, there's no longer a field in the township that has lights for baseball. We're very thankful in softball that we have lights here at Town Hall, but there really isn't anything after that, which would open up a lot of possibilities, potential, play deeper into the season and at night. So we would like to take back to our board the outcome of this if there's things that we can do to help fundraise to offset some of these costs, which I know came back a little bit higher than I think everybody had hoped. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, anyone else? No? Okay, all right. I believe that concludes the agenda items for residents and taxpayers only. We will move on to the township business items. The first item we have is 2575 Bart Garden Drive, Allison, a waiver request for well isolation. Ryan, do you want to speak to that? Or? Oh, actually, is anybody here for it? Come on forward. You can sit at the table if you want, whatever's easier for you.
Just hit the red square and it'll turn green.
You could just identify yourself for the record.
Kyle Allison.
All right, Kyle. Do you want to add anything to what we have in the packet?
That is all the information we have. We kind of really tried to send it over to you. A lot of the engineers that we had do the work included everything that they have. I don't really have much on top of that.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
So this is, the property we're talking about is an existing small lot of record that had a malfunctioning system on it. So the property owner engaged the services of a designer, and they were able to design an alternate at-grade bed septic system to function for the property, to allow the property to be occupied. Not uncommon with these small lots that now that a modern system is designed to treat it, because the lot is so small that it is within 100 feet of their well. It is not within 100 feet of anyone else's well. This is very similar to the items we have at council a couple of times a year when it's their own well. Link prepares an agreement that says that they recognize that and that they're responsible for that. But other than that, there's nothing unusual or out of the ordinary from what you've dealt with before.
Okay. All right, any questions from council?
I'll make a motion to approve the applicant's request for well isolation waiver approval for the replacement of the septic system located at 2575 Garden Drive.
And is that subject to execution of the agreement with indemnification to the township?
To the solicitor's agreement.
Okay, I'll second that. Mark?
Mr. Bononis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Engels, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, so you'll have to get together with the township staff to finalize everything, but reach out to Mark Hudson. He can coordinate everything for you. Thank you. All right, next up is 1982 Lightsville Road, Iskakova, waiver request for well isolation. Is everyone here for that? Hi.
There we get two in a row.
Same day they came in. They came in the same day.
All right, if you just identify yourselves, please. Yeah.
Is that green?
You just push it down, it's green.
Push the.
Is it green or red?
It's red.
I need green. Green is on.
That's okay.
Just speak directly into that.
Okay, so my name is Marina Ishakova. I'm here to ask for a waiver for well isolation.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to the packet that was submitted to us?
No.
Okay. All right, Brian?
This is a similar request. The property is not as small, but as you can see, there's a pond and a stream on there, so there really wasn't any other area other than in the front yard for an alternate system. This one's a little different. It actually required DEP's approval, which they have given, which allows your SEO to issue the permit, but again, it's within 100 feet of their own well. So very similarly, if council's okay, Link could prepare the indemnification agreement, and that requires council's approval.
Brian, did DEP put any conditions on their approval?
No.
Okay. All right, unless there are any questions from council, I'll make a motion to approve the 1982 Lightsville Road, Iskakova waiver request for well isolation subject to execution of agreements prepared by the township solicitor with indemnification.
I'll second it.
Ms. DeLeon? Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Engels, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. So again, get in touch with Mark Hudson in the township offices. He'll coordinate with you to get the paperwork to you, and you can move forward with it, okay?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good luck.
Kathy, can you give her my card? Can you give her my card?
All right, next up we have the Easton Road Ball Field bid results review and possible action. The township has received 5 bids from contractors for the Easton Road Ball Field project. Please see the attached bid summary form showing all the bids included, the base bid and 6 alternatives. So we received the bid packet. Brian, do you want to provide us with your perspective on this, since there are a number of different bids at different prices?
Sure. So, per council's direction, we did prepare a little bit different bid package this time. We put together a list of items that were sort of bare bones to get it to be a playable field. And then we also listed alternate items for council's consideration on some of the other amenities on the site. So we received 5 bids. The lowest from CH&N Site Construction Incorporated, which came in at slightly under 1.9 million for the base bid, and then a little bit over 1.3 million for the alternatives, which include site lighting, the dugouts, the bleachers above dugouts, the press box and scoreboard, batting cages, and putting sod on the field, which hopefully will allow it to be played earlier.
I guess just to provide some historical perspective to those in the audience and those who may be tuning in online, this process started, Sandy, you could probably speak to this, back in 2012 or 2014.
Yes.
And there were efforts then to renovate that field and put some lights on it, and it sort of fell by the wayside because of pricing and other issues, and we resurrected this about 1.5 years ago with the goal of moving forward with this project, which ultimately led to the design that we have now. So for those who may not have seen the design, essentially the current footprint of the field would be turned about 180 degrees, cut into the bank that's toward I-78, and the parking area would be refinished, lights would be put on the field, batting cages, and it would really be a first-rate, full-size baseball field with lighting, which the entire Saucon Valley community lacks. Many other townships and municipalities in the Lehigh Valley have lighted fields, and we unfortunately do not. And I know in talking with folks from baseball that presents a problem, particularly early in the season because of lighting issues at night. The sun obviously goes down earlier, and we can see that's happening now. And certainly in fall ball, the lights would be an improvement to allow baseball to take place beyond 5 or 6 o'clock when it starts getting darker earlier. So we talked about this quite a bit. We actually sent this out to bid, Brian, was it September of last year?
Yeah, in the fall.
Yeah, in the fall, and the bids came back. This was at the height of the supply chain crisis and manpower crisis post-COVID. The bids came in, and I think the full price bid all in, we only got 1 bid, and I believe that was from Grace Industries, who bid here. We got the 1 bid then, and it was about it was $3.265 million. So what we have here, the low bid all in, is about 3.2, so it's a little bit less. So, and the issue that we looked at then was, could we do this as a component, a base project, and then add some components into it and decide what we want to do? Since that time, we were successful, thanks to Kathy and township staff, to receive state aid through our state representative, Malou McKenzie, a state grant, gaming grant. I think it was over $500,000, right, Mark? $550,000?
We're at $508,860.
Okay. And that money is specifically earmarked for this project because the bid was, the
grant application was for the Easton Road Ball Field, yes.
Yeah. So here we are now, with some different options, including some different base packages and some add-ons. My thoughts on this are that, it's certainly an expensive project, but I think we've heard from the community that it's a project that will be well received and well used by the public, and it's something that's been talked about now for well over a decade. And I think it's time for us to move forward with it. We obviously have more than $500,000 in grant money that is earmarked for this, so the tax burden to the Lower Saucon residents is not as great. We also have, how much money, Kathy, in the general fund? $10 million?
We have about, about $6 million or $9 million in reserves.
$9 million in reserves, yeah. So we have the money to get this project done, and I think it's long past due. My thoughts on this, and I'm obviously open it up to the other members of council, my thoughts on this are to, well, before I say this, Brian, have you done any investigation of the various contractors to assure that, you know, they vary in price from 1.8 million to 2.8 million, which is a pretty wide range. You know, my inclination is to lean toward the least expensive one. Are you aware of any issues with CH&N site construction that would cause us pause and suggest that we should consider a different bid?
In the time that I've had since we got the bid till now, I have looked over the projects that they've submitted as examples and references. I'm familiar with some of those projects, but we haven't. If council wants to award it, one of the conditions would be that the township staff investigate and confirm that they are capable of doing the work.
Okay. Well, then my inclination here is to proceed with accepting or approving the bid from CH&N Site Construction in the amount of $1.887 million. And the other, Mark, you could probably speak to this, since your work is in this field. There's an athletic field sod alternate that's provided here. I think the least expensive one of those that came in is $67,900 some dollars.
69.
Now I'm looking over here at the odd. Yeah.
No, it's.
I know it goes to that, but the least, so the bid that we're getting from CH&N for the alternate is only $1,800 more than the lowest alternate that we have. What are your thoughts, Mark, on laying sod and the benefits to moving the field forward to make it playable earlier, and also providing for erosion and other damage that could occur if it's not sodded, if we get some heavy rain events like when some of these tropical storms come through in the fall?
I think, as everyone out in the audience knows, growing grass is usually a difficult process. Sometimes it works perfectly, most of the time it does not. By doing sod, you're basically cutting 2 to 3 years off the process. So you have a playable surface relatively quickly. Once it knits, and if this project would get done in the fall, you're ready to go in the spring. If you seed the project, it's probably gonna be at least probably the fall before you can get on the field again. So you've pretty much lost a year of baseball.
Fall of 24.
Fall of 24, yes. So you're pretty much gonna lose a year. So my recommendation and professional opinion would be to sod the turf. It'll knit together, and you can pretty much sod right up until Christmas time.
Okay.
So it takes some of the timing out of play.
Are there issues with regard to watering?
And the biggest problem with sod is you have to keep it wet. You have to keep it wet permanently. Fall is a much better time than summer if you're gonna do this process. I don't think we have much water out there, so we'd have to find an alternative to that. Perhaps the fire department could bring over one of their pumpers, and they could water it daily. It's not as big of a deal as it might sound. They could go out there with one of their fire trucks, and I'm assuming they hold a couple thousand gallons, so you might be able to do the whole field with one tank.
Okay.
And no more than a couple hours total, I believe. And then in the fall, if the weather cooperates, you may not have to do it at all. So that's a variable.
Has anybody talked to the fire companies about this?
We have not. This kind of just came up.
Because I would think that, you know, they're busy enough putting out fires, kind of reversing water, you know what I'm saying? That's a lot for a volunteer to have to do in addition.
My thoughts are to move forward with the 1.88 million plus the 69,000 sod alternate, And with regard to the other parts that are here, which are the site and field lighting, precast concrete dugouts, bleachers and structure above the dugouts, precast concrete press box and scoreboard, and double tunnel batting cages, that we defer any action on those items. You know, we've heard from the baseball organization that they would be interested in doing some fundraising. Maybe we can get some corporate partners, business partners in the community or in the Lehigh Valley to support this, maybe even the Iron Pigs, and see if we can get some fundraising for that. And, you know, I think move forward with the base project plus the sod and maybe rebid out each of the component parts here to individual subcontractors. I would assume, Brian, you could probably speak to this. Each one of these alternates that are here probably have some sort of a markup because it's coming to us from a general contractor. So if we were to go directly to the source, such as for all these concrete items, there's Bethlehem Precast Concrete, just for example. I'm not singling them out in any way. But perhaps we could get better pricing by going directly to the contractor or subcontractor who would be providing each of those sub-alternates. Is that a fair statement?
It's a fair statement. The bid doesn't provide for that, so we don't know what the markup is, but there is a general contractor, and we know that they do mark up.
One other question I have.
Note, though, that just so council understands, the base bid includes the wiring in the ground to each one of these so that you don't have to dig the field up if it's some time in the future you want to do this.
You read my mind. That was my next question.
That is okay for the site lighting, but just so council is aware, some of these precast structures, once the field is in and usable, they may not be able to put precast concrete in there because of the disturbance. So it may be a different type of structure, maybe it's stick-built, maybe it's built in place. Just so I just wanted to make council aware of that. Okay. That these alternates, primarily the buildings, are based on required while they're in there and the site's disturbed, it's easy to set them. They may not be, you may be looking at a different type of structure if you hold off.
Right, and if we were to go with a stick structure, that would probably be less expensive than a concrete structure, right?
It's not as durable.
Right, right, okay.
Yeah, I'd like to jump back to, we're talking about the sod and about watering it and having the fire companies doing it.
Yes.
The last gentleman that spoke, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. He volunteered to do whatever the team can do to help us out. Well, maybe this is an area where they can come up with a committee and do the watering hours a day. And, you know, if the sod needs it, and kind of watch out on it to take the burden off.
I think the problem is getting the water there.
Well, the fire, yes, right, but it's once it's there, the fire company, I can't imagine them spending 3 hours or 4 hours of their time when they could be called out on a fire call. I mean, you know, we're very short on fire company members, and I just think that's a disservice to them.
Well, I
so
think
if the fire, getting the wrong.
I think they're gonna need the truck though. That's where the dilemma comes. And the truck with the pumper will blow that water out there pretty quickly.
And I don't think the fire company wants, no offense to the folks in baseball, but lay people running a fire truck, pumper truck to water a lawn.
Right.
I think we would want to leave that to the
and
people.
obviously fire services would come first as the fire services liaison. I'll talk to them at our next meeting. I'm sure they won't have a problem with it.
Putting the
We
cart
just bought them
before the horse.
no, I doubt it. I doubt it. We bought them a $1.5 million ladder truck, so I think they've always been willing to cooperate. They merged when we asked them to merge, and
For example, Priscilla, my cedar is 500 gallons.
you couldn't get that done.
And we
in
can
36 years.
drain that in about 20 minutes.
We got it done too.
With a nice pumping system. Theirs are far superior than what I own. So they might go through 3,000 gallons in, you know, an hour.
Well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
And I would also note for your consideration, whether you want to do sod or not, that it is possible that the sod wouldn't go down until the spring, depending on the weather that we have this fall and the schedule, how much rock we hit. So that could be an even more reason to say, you know, if we don't seed this till the spring, that even pushes it
Pushes it
further
back
out,
to the
so.
following spring. Yeah.
Sandy, you drive by there all the time. I mean, that's on your way to your home.
Yes.
You have any thoughts on this?
Well, I guess the only other thing is, I was trying to, in fact, I have a little note here to myself, is the timeline from like the start of what needs to be done in first and working your way through the timeline. Would there present, and Kathy, jump in here, some additional opportunities for looking for grant funding for some of the specifics in here?
Oh, sure.
That's what I was thinking, but I don't know the timing. If this all has to be done in 2 months, then that's not an option, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that was my suggestion with regard to the alternates 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that are on the
Well, I
spreadsheet that we
understand,
have
but I was
here.
thinking more of the core too, that maybe we could get some additional funding for some of the core. But again, I didn't know the timeline as far as when this is all gonna happen.
Usually after a project is started, you can't ask for grants for a
Okay.
project that is started. We could come back and ask for, if
Some
we
of the,
leave.
some of the enhancements is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we could ask for grants for those.
That's what I'm saying, this
Once the
core is
initial project
absolute.
is finished.
Okay, that's what I was trying to confirm, that these core products all need to be done at the same time, that
Yes.
there's nothing that can get pulled out. Okay.
Correct.
And the same grant that we applied for this year and got for $508,000, we can apply for a similar grant next year in 2024.
Yeah.
You can
I
apply, but you
don't
gotta,
know.
you can apply.
Funders
Gaming
tend
grant,
to,
isn't it?
it'll depend.
The gaming grants are yearly, I thought.
Yes.
And there may be other grants.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, so if there's no further comments or questions about it, I'm going to make a motion to accept and approve the bid award, thank you, that's the word, thank you, award, award the bid that we received from CH&N Site Construction Incorporated in the amount of $1,887,464.13, plus alternate 6, which is the athletic field sod, in the amount of $69,806. And that is subject to investigation and communication by the township manager and engineer with CH&N Site Construction. And I would hope that those investigations and communications can take place as soon as possible, so that this bid, as I understand it, was made with the understanding that they would work on this in the fall. So I think baseball wants this project done. It's been hanging around for 11 years or 12 years now. I think they'd like to move this along as quickly as they can. So if you could investigate that and confirm everything is good, perhaps this week, so that they can have an understanding. And also I would ask that you communicate back to Mr. McGargle or one of the representatives of baseball that's here when they will be starting, because these folks may want to use this field, but at the same time, I think that they're willing to forego the use of this field in the fall to get this project moving along so that they can use it in the spring. I think spring is more important to them than fall. And then in addition, as part of this motion, I would ask that the township manager and engineer and solicitor coordinate another round of bid proposals for the alternates 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that are on here, which specifically are the site and field lighting, precast concrete dugouts, bleachers and structure above the dugouts, precast concrete press box and scoreboard, and double tunnel batting cages, so that we can find out if there's better pricing on that, and to also pursue any grant money that may be available for those items, as well as any other public-private partnerships that could be used to help fund those, and also to coordinate with Saucon Valley Diamond Sports, any fundraising needs that, fundraising opportunities that may exist between the organization and the community to help offset those costs. Is that a fair motion? Okay, it's a mouthful. It was a very long one.
The houses out there have wells, right, on Eastern Road?
Yes.
Well, how much does it cost to put a well in? Does anybody know? Mark?
10 grand, 10,000, 15,000?
So if we had a well out there, the water would be out there.
Well, we don't have electric yet, do we?
Well, there'll be electric there, but there's no building for any of the appurtenances for the well, so.
There's no, well, I didn't hear you,
There's
Brian.
no build, if you don't do any of the alternates, there's no building to house any of the equipment to get the water out of the well.
How big of a building do you need?
Well,
Because I understand.
all I'm saying is.
Hold on, Tom. So I understand that there's a shed that's out there. Now, the shed presumably has a floor to it, but I'm wondering if the shed could be repurposed as a temporary pump house for a well.
Yeah, well.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tom.
We'd have to look at that, because you'd have to winterize it and.
That's what I'm looking at. I would like the township staff to look at the well alternative, and report back, maybe in September sometime. chance to,
But I might add
give
on,
you an estimate of cost.
there may not be enough pressure
Right.
to water the field,
Right. I just
and which you may not know until you dig the well. I don't have a well, so I'm not well, but I have done some research on it over the years.
If,
Brian, I think you can get them so you don't have to winterize them. I think you can get it all to go down. I'm not positive on that.
That pump that,
Below the frost line.
there's a word for that.
Below the frost line.
Yeah,
At our next fire services meeting, I'll talk to, the volunteer fire services. But in the meantime, I'd like the township to also explore the well possibility.
Can we do that as a separate motion after mine?
Sure.
All right, so I have my motion out there. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mark.
Mr. Ingles, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Mr. Caroci?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
No.
Motion passes 4-1.
Tom, you want to make your motion?
Yes, that the township, explore, the possibility of putting a well, on the property, cost, and what, if it would be even possible as an alternative to, possibly using fire services, which I'll look into, a pumper truck for fire services, so they could just look into that.
I'll second that motion.
Ms. Yerger, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Mr. Caroci?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
I'm voting no, and I'd like to explain that I think this is an inappropriate use of taxpayers' money to invest this amount of money in an industrial area, and I brought this up during the rezoning of Easton Road. So my vote is no.
Mr. Engels?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Link, just to be clear, this is not part of the property that was rezoned on Easton Road. This is actually to the southeast of Mockingbird Hill Road, which I believe was the line. And there's actually a cemetery there, a historic church, and a historic schoolhouse, right?
I believe that's correct.
All right.
Slap in the face, slap in the face to youth sports.
My reason.
All right.
You don't care
Before we
about
move on to the
kids
next
in the
item,
township,
I'd like to
you don't have
thank the folks here that are here for baseball. You know, this council recognizes your volunteerism. We appreciate what you do for the community. I know there's some that have been involved in baseball for a very long time. You know, the time that you put in is time well spent and valuable to the community. We recognize that. We appreciate it. So thank you for that. All right. Let's move on to the next item. Our next item we have is authorizing the township engineer to prepare and advertise a bid to repair a storm sewer pipe and the storm sewer easement from Robin Court to the Black River. A corrugated steel storm pipe has failed and is creating a hole in the township storm sewer easement that runs from Robin Court to Black River. Township staff is recommending to replace the entire length of the storm pipe, approximately 300 feet, as this whole section is corrugated steel. Mark, or
Yeah, we have a very, very narrow easement going from Robin Court down to the Black River. It's a corrugated, old metal corrugated pipe, which has failed. These have a tendency to rust through. And this was probably originally put in when the development was in. We do have a map there that shows the pipe failure area and would like the township engineer to put together a big package and put it out to bid to have this replaced. We may have to also get easements, but we'll determine that as the bid package is put together.
I don't have any questions. Unless there's questions of council, I'll make a motion to authorize the township engineer to prepare a bid package for replacing the entire length of the storm pipe that runs from Robin Court to Black River.
I'll second it.
Mr. Benonis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Caroci, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Engels, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, so the next item we have up here on the agenda is discussion of renaming the Woodland Hills Preserve to the Sandra Yerger Community Recreation Area and Nature Preserve. This came to us through Parks and Rec. Mark, I think you brought this up, and I know the Parks and Rec folks had talked about this. Do you want to share some of the perspective from your liaising to Parks and Rec?
I think Parks and Rec's very appreciative of what Sandy has done over many, many years. And I think Jason has a list of some of her accomplishments. But Parks and Rec, like we said, we had no problem getting to where we were with Sandy. Mr. Spurk commented earlier about how she's she's been around a long time and has done a lot of nice things. And we thank her for that. We need more people like that around.
I agree wholeheartedly, Mark. Just for some of the highlights of Sandy's career, and I don't think I could touch on all the points today. Sandy has been a council person for Lower Saucon Township for more than 20 years, right, Sandy? She's also the founding member of the Lower Saucon Township Environmental Action Committee. She is the founder of the Lower Saucon Open Space Program. Her family's property was the first one that was placed into the Lower Saucon Open Space Program. Her family received $0 for placing that, for that generous donation to the community. Sandy herself would have been the direct beneficiary of that asset of her family, and she chose to forego that and give it to the community. She championed the acquisition of the former Woodland Hills Golf Course for preservation as a community open space and recreation area. I know she uses it regularly.
Yeah. My dog loves it.
Your dog loves it. And I know that she's very modest about this. And you know, I think this is a tremendous honor for a tremendous person. And I think that she is wholeheartedly deserving of this. You know, there were some comments by some in the public about naming a public space after living people. And by no means is this something new, and it's something I think that should be done more often to appreciate the contributions of people while they're with us, so they can understand and appreciate what they've done for the community for a long time. And I'll give you some examples. There's the Judge Kahn Federal Courthouse in Allentown. Judge Kahn is alive and well. He's doing very well. He's a very prominent judge, well-respected member of the federal bench. He's got a courthouse named after him. Richard Anderson, who is the CEO of St. Luke's Hospital, has an entire medical campus named after him, and I think he's doing well as well. President Joe Biden has the Biden Expressway in Scranton named after him, and I'm not sure how well he's doing, but he's got an expressway named after him. Morris J. Dimmick died in 1972. Maybe, Mark, you can speak to this. I don't know if Dimmick Park was Dimmick Park in 1972. Maybe there's other people in the audience that can speak to that. That's before my time.
I don't know that one.
But, you know, perhaps Morris J. Dimmick was alive when they named the Dimmick Park after him. So this is not something that's new, and I think it's something that is a nice honor, and I think Sandy's highly deserving of it, and I know that she's very modest, and you know, that's all I have to say.
I agree. No one's done more for the township. And no one's done more for the township, and I couldn't agree more. It's just so appropriate.
So, any comments, Priscilla? None?
I'm good.
Mark? All right.
Comfortable.
Sandy, do you want to say anything on this? I know that you're probably going to abstain from voting on it, but
Yes,
do you
I
want
am.
to say anything before we vote?
Yes, I am. No, I'm overwhelmed. I hardly didn't expect this for obvious reasons, and I don't know whether to thank the Recreation Board or not, but I do respect their wishes, so.
All right, well, I want to thank Dave Spurk, who's on Parks and Rec. He's here with us tonight. The other members of Parks and Rec who donate their time to the township to make sure that we have a vibrant, top-notch quality park and recreation system here, and I appreciate them bringing this recommendation to this council. So I will wholeheartedly endorse and make a motion to rename the Woodland Hills Preserve the Sandra Yerger Community Recreation Area and Nature Preserve.
And I'll second.
Mr. Croce, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
No.
Mr. Engels?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Staying.
Mr. Bononis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Sandy, enjoy walking at the Sandra Yerger Community Recreation and Nature Preserve with your dogs and your grandchildren and your family.
No hurry to change the sign, believe me.
Mark, will you move forward with getting new signage and updating the township website to reflect the name change?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move on now. Next is consideration of funding request for the Hellertown Halloween Parade and participation. In the past, Township has given a $1,000 donation to this event. Mark, do you want to add anything to this?
No, we received the donation letter, as we do every year, and the registration form if the Township Council would like to participate in the event. But yes, in the past, we have given $1,000 to this event.
All right, well, unless there's any questions or comments from council, I'll make a motion to give a $1,000 donation to the 2023 Hellertown Halloween Parade.
I'll second it.
Very nice, thank you. I think we have fun. I know, Tom, your children went on the truck last year.
Yeah, me, you and my children and Jason.
Yeah, we had fun.
We had a great time. I hope we do it again this year.
I do too.
I think the Phillies won the World Series when we were in that parade.
Yes,
weren't
we
they?
had the,
Yeah,
we had
I
our
remember.
Phillies
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah.
We had our
Let's hope
Phillies
it happens again.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes to that and the Phillies.
Mr. Engels?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Bononis?
Yes.
Mr. Caroci?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And just to share the date with everyone, the date for the parade is October 22, 2023 at 2 o'clock p.m. There is no rain date. Lineup begins 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. I'm not sure which route they're running, if they're going clockwise or counterclockwise. Sometimes they go to Main Street, other times they go to Constitution.
No idea.
More information will follow. All right. Next up is resolution number 57-2023, Norco Public Safety Grant Application. Township staff has come forward with a recommendation to submit a grant for an additional mobile and fixed license plate reader for the police department. Mark or Kathy?
Yeah, we have a grant opportunity for the police to get another license plate reader for one of the cars and another stationary license plate reader. This helps them identify cars that don't have registration, since you don't get registration stickers anymore. And it also helps in deterring crime.
Okay. I think this council has been steadfast in its support of police and public safety. I anticipate there's no questions or objections from council, so I will make a motion to approve staff submits a grant for additional mobile and fixed license plate reader for the police department under resolution 57-2023 for the Norco Public Safety Grant application.
And I'll second that.
Mr. Engels, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis?
Yes.
Mr. Caroci?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next up is approval of the July 11, 2023 council minutes. Unless there are any questions or corrections, I will make a motion to approve the July 11, 2023 council minutes.
I'll second.
Ms. Yerger, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis?
Yes.
Mr. Caroci?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Engels?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, and next we have is the July 2023 financial reports are ready for council's review and approval. Unless there are any questions for Kathy, I will make a motion to approve the July 2023 financial reports.
I'll second it.
Mr. Bononis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Caroci?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Engels?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we are now at council and staff reports. Mark, any updates for us?
Lower Saucon Township will be hosting an electronic recycling event on Saturday, October 14th at 9 a.m. here at the Lower Saucon Township Public Works Building. This is an environmental advisory committee event, so if you have any electronics that you would like to get rid of, please come out. There will be a charge for many of the devices, but this is a good opportunity to get rid of those items. The final movie for our...
Mark, can I ask you a question about that? With regard to the charges, will they take a credit card or is it cash only?
I do not know the answer to that. I'll
Maybe we
find
can
out.
find out just so that people know whether they need to bring cash. And if you can get any ballpark estimates for what different devices may be, TVs versus toasters.
We will have that.
Okay.
I don't have that yet.
Okay.
I will find out if they will take a credit card.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's just writing a note. The final movie in the park will be on August 25th. This is a date change. It was supposed to be this Friday. The screen that we used was not available this Friday, so it will be August 25th here at Town Hall Park. We'll be showing the ever-loved Toy Story, Disney Toy Story. and the movie will begin promptly at 7 p.m. We have an opening on the Saucon Valley Rail Trail Committee as our volunteer is resigning at the end of the year or sooner if a replacement is found. Township staff will be sending out a notice that we are looking for a volunteer, but if you know someone that uses the trail a lot and would like to volunteer on the Saucon Valley Rail Trail, please have them reach out to me. We have 2 openings on the Environmental Advisory Commission that we're taking volunteer applications for. So if you know anyone that would like to participate in the Environmental Advisory Commission, please have them send in an application. And we are still looking for junior council members. If you know any kids in high school that would be interested in being a junior council member, we try to get a junior council member on each of the boards. Also have them contact the township office. We hope to appoint those junior council members at our September meeting. That's all I have.
All right, thanks, Mark. All right, council, let's start with Mark.
I'd like to say thank you to Public Works for doing a nice job last week during the storms. I don't know if any of you got out that night, but it wasn't a pretty sight. And I believe the guys were out till about 1 a.m.
Yeah, the guys were out till 1 a.m.
1 a.m., Mark, and I believe they cleared everything they could that wasn't touching a power line.
Yeah.
And I think there's been some confusion with how that works, and nobody is allowed to touch a tree that is touching a power line until PP&L certifies the power is turned off. That goes for private contractors and also public contractors. So it may look like they missed one, but there was a reason why they didn't do it, and it was safety. People can be without power for a little bit, so people don't, our road crew doesn't have to move a live wire. And so just, thanks to them, because I ran into some of the guys on Tuesday doing the cleanups, and they had a long night, but they were happy with how they got everything done. So, good job, guys.
I have a question, Mark. In addition to what you're saying, is there a way we can put that on our, sorry. In addition to what you said, is there a way we can maybe get the word out on the website, or when we issue these tree down reports, just maybe put a little phrase in there saying that, the reason why the delay is because we have to wait for PPL, so it's not looking like our fault?
Right. Because I know there were some complaints that people said, why aren't they here yet? Why aren't they here yet? Well, they can't.
So that way then.
It's very dangerous.
Right.
And unfortunately, there were 1 or 2 private crews out running around cleaning up streets, and I'm not sure why. Our guys did a great job. There was no reason for any private contractor to be out with unlit vehicles and things of that nature. And I talked to Mark about it, and no one was authorized to do it. So spread the word, guys. Just stay away from downed trees and power lines. It's not a safe environment.
Good. Just to let you know, I don't know if you heard it on the news, they say that's what started the Hawaii. Yeah, unfortunately.
I heard that too.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mark?
No, I'm good.
All right, Sandy?
Nope, I will echo his thanks, and that's all I have.
Yeah. With regard to the storm cleanup, in your neighborhood, I actually received positive feedback from Public Works, about Public Works. The residents were very impressed with how quickly Public Works got out there. Within hours, the streets were opened, so if you would pass it along to Roger and the crew, I know the residents are really appreciative of their efforts. It was quite a storm. Fortunately, there was no loss of life or serious injury that I had heard of. Certainly a lot of property damage. It could have been a lot worse, but just appreciative that everything worked out well. I received an update somewhat with regard to the Meadows Road Bridge. It sounds like PennDOT is getting ready for bids, and there's a goal to perhaps have construction take place in the spring of 2024. So the Meadows Road Bridge, which has been closed, feels like a decade now, maybe it is, may be, back online, which I think will be helpful for some of the activities that are taking place over in 412 on Main Street. So that's good. And then lastly, I attended the Fire Services Fire Apparatus Building Committee meeting on August 3rd. I attended in Tom's place. It was a very good meeting. Chief Barnt was there. Ty was there, the Chief Ty, and Brian Evans, Scott Crecia, and others. And just to provide some background on that, because we've talked about this, you may want to add more to this, Tom. Tom has been spearheading efforts to look at our long-term capital needs for fire services in the township, and where, you know, the township has changed a lot since fire stations were built. There's some fire stations that have been around since, what, 1910 or 1800s even.
Correct.
Yeah, so the community has grown a lot, and with that, I think we need to grow to meet the demands of the community. So some of the things that have been discussed, and I'm looking forward to their report to us in September, where they're going to lay out exactly the recommendations. But we looked at location review, and you know, I don't think I'm giving away any secrets here, but you know, the geographic center of the township seems to be somewhere along Polk Valley. Polk Valley Road, and in that area. But there's also need to have some equipment and apparatus at the extremes of the township, like out at Southeastern and at Seawyco, or this part of the township, and over in Steel City. So they're looking at that as well. They've actually obtained some fire station facades of other stations that have been built recently to figure out what would be appropriate style for the community and meet their needs in terms of space. They talked about having the substations, like I mentioned, and they're also talking about costs. And I don't think I'm speaking out of term here, but it's going to be millions of dollars to accomplish this. But I think it's necessary to have this vision and this plan in place so that we can plan for these needs as they come up in the coming years. And we also talked about funding sources, and this will be likely a public partnership with fire services. They're a 501c3 nonprofit, but they also have assets that they can help to contribute to this. So I think it's a very good partnership, and a lot of things are coming together, and I can't wait for this to happen. I think it's going to be great for the community.
Yeah,
So thank you for allowing me to fill in on that, Tom.
I just add that, you know, now that they've merged and we're dealing with one fire company, this is all, everybody's working together. All of them, they are and we are. And the fact of the matter is our fire stations are 80, 100 years old, and none of them are really prepared to be a firehouse for the next 50 years. So, you know, then that's what we have to look at. So we'll have a report in September with some recommendations for long-term capital investment in fire services, and we'll have some costs associated with it, and some ideas and some plans for council to consider.
Yeah. One of the other things, Tom, I didn't mention is there are some FEMA grants, FEMA and EOC grants, as well as state and federal legislation that can help offset this. And they're going to be looking into that and providing you with that information. So that'll be helpful.
Great.
That's all I have for my council report. Priscilla?
Yes, hi. I attended National Night Out, and it was very nice.
Yes,
I'd
it
like
was.
to
It's excellent.
thank the police, the fire people, the staff. I know the township guys did a great job, and it was very nicely done.
How was the ice cream?
I had two. Were you watching?
I'm just asking. So I had an ice cream. I mean, they look great.
Whoa. They ran out of rules.
Oh, they did run out of roll. Oh, I didn't know that.
People, free hot dogs, people will take them. No matter how they are.
But anyway, it was very, very well done. So I really appreciate, and the community spirit was great. Everybody that I talked to really enjoyed being there. So thank you. I also want to ask, why are all the EAC meetings canceled? Like, what is the issue with why they're not being held?
There really hasn't been anything for the agenda to consider. We're going to consider two things in September, but there's no need to waste township staff's time.
Who determines that?
I did.
So you're the chair,
Yep.
so you determine
Absolutely.
that? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, just thought I'd ask. At the last meeting, Tom, you questioned me on whether or not the, let's see, the northern realignment was an expansion or not? Remember we had discussion on that?
Right, DEP called it a realignment, so I called
No, DEP did not call it a realignment. The landfill called it a realignment, and all the DEP correspondences, I didn't highlight this, the DEP calls it, and this is from their, and well, actually, the landfill actually calls it a northern realignment expansion area.
Okay.
And
Realignment. So you're saying I was wrong when they say it's a realignment?
you are, okay, I'll read another paragraph. This is the introduction in the DEP document, the plan approval application for the Northern Realignment Landfill Expansion.
I hear that word realignment.
And I hear that word expansion. So it says the proposed expansion, in parentheses, AKA the Northern Realignment. So DEP actually looks at it as the expansion. Involves an increase in the landfills, and it goes on with their design capacity, whatever. So it is an expansion. So I just
So
thought
you voted for every expansion over the last 36 years, and there was one realignment.
no, there were two realignments.
Well, you voted against for every expansion over the past 36 years, every landfill expansion over the past 36 years. And you voted against one realignment.
We're not going into that again, Tom.
You're not disputing that.
I'm not, no, I'm not making any comment on that.
Okay.
Pro or con.
And you didn't put a conservation easement on it. You didn't put a conservation easement on that, you and the solicitor at that time.
It's really getting funny now, you know? I just think you're being funny.
I want to thank you for not putting the conservation easement on, so thank you.
Well, you'll see how thankful you'll be.
Okay, anything else for today?
Nope, I think that's it.
That was enlightening. I also attended National Night Out. I want to thank the police for that. It was a great night. My kids attended as well. I also want to thank Public Works for the great job they did with cleanup. I'm glad there's been a change of management at the Hellertown Pool. They've had to close for a couple of days this summer under the old management. And
did they bring back the old manager?
They did. Ed Kolosky, Coach K, who ran it for many years. It was disappointing when they let him go 2 years ago. Disappointing, but not unexpected from that particular council. But they at least had the good sense to bring him back. And hopefully things start running a little more smoothly back there so our residents can enjoy a pool that's actually open in August when it's hot. But remains to be seen. That's all I have.
All right. I think that concludes the council report. Link, is there a solicitor report?
I don't have anything to see.
Brian, engineer report.
We met today with the contractor for the Steel City paving project to review the details of the work and his schedule, and his subcontractor doing the small amount of storm sewer work we have. They are targeting the first or second week in September to mobilize and get started. So hopefully we'll see some work out there before the next council meeting.
That's great.
Is the school working together with the school? I'm sorry. Are you working together with the school for buses and all that stuff?
They'll have to coordinate all that, and Mark and Roger will be involved in that. That's all.
Thank you,
That's
Brian.
great news. That's a great development for the folks in Steel City. All right, so we're up to council non-agenda items. Again, it's residents, taxpayers, only 3 minutes. First name is Victoria Optoff Cordero. Victoria Optoff Cordero. Okay. I'll move on to the next one, Lynn Hill. Lynn Hill. All right, the next one is Laura Ray. Laura Ray. Okay, next is Kathy McGovern? Sorry, I can't read the writing.
I'll defer.
Okay, defer. Next is Marco Zimic. No? Okay, Marco Zimic.
He went to get Victoria.
And the last is, we have, here we go. I called your name, Victoria Optoff Cordero. I see you've rejoined us.
Yes, thank you. I've just been watching. I guess there's a little delay feed from the YouTube in the conference room. So I apologize for not coming out when you called my name because it didn't show up on the YouTube feed. I just wanted to say thank you to our policemen and thank you to council for authorizing the extra license plate readers. Our policemen, I know, work really hard, and we do have an issue with a lot of crimes in the township, in my neighborhood specifically, people just disobeying stop signs from buses that are stopped to pick up children, and those crimes remain unsolved because we don't have the resources. So I'm thankful that we can support the police in that respect, and I'm hopeful that it will help with our crime. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I don't see anybody else rejoined us, so the last thing we have on the list is Dave Boulan.
Dave Boulan, and no, I don't have a blog, by the way, but nonetheless, wanted to make a comment from the last meeting. I noticed people were sending in letters that weren't at least signed, so we don't know who sent them, and they were read as though gospel here to the audience. And I would request if people are going to make comments, they at least identify themselves. So that would be one thing. Some of the other things that I ran into, I was very surprised to see certain things here. I did discover something called the FOIA. I think everybody ought to understand what that is. So if you're having trouble getting information, you can make application. FOIA is the ethics body in part, doing business as the PA Office of Open Records. And so I found that to be very helpful if you are not getting the answers you need. Doesn't always work, may take time, but nonetheless, it does. The other thing that I was surprised about came up last night at the Hellertown Council meeting, of all places. I didn't know we could all go down there and speak about things that affected us here as Lower Saucon, because apparently they've taken it up to comment on our politics here, and yet I see certain people have shown up here that are very much interested in representing this council, but we as the general public are not understood. We're not able to understand what goes on because this was a special meeting. So I find that somewhat disconcerting. I certainly don't want to get into it with Hellertown, but we've already been around that block for a couple of times. So police, wonderful, great. I noticed the body cameras, the car cameras, the readers, if there's any dispute, and I noticed some of the bigger cities are now asking for body cams. We've got them. Our people are much safer for that. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I believe that concludes the meeting. I'll have a, oh, Mr. Zimic has returned. Mr. Zimic, you were on the non-agenda list. I called your name, but you didn't respond. So do you have any comments? No? No. Okay. All right, with that, I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Engels?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis?
Yes.
Motion passes. Have a great night.
You too.